Hey y'all, July 14th is Non-Binary Awareness Day, so today I'll be talking about gender. In video games, specifically non-binary characters. Once again, I am not an expert in this topic that people get master's degrees in, and to fit the scope of a YouTube video, there's a lot I have to leave out. This video won't be perfect, but I did do a lot of research and asked some of my non-binary friends for help. Their responses ranged from, of course I'll help, I gave you this video idea, to, why did you break into my apartment? You could have just texted me. Part 1. Non-binary? Is that like some type of programming language? The jokes aren't getting any better than that, people. First, we gotta define our terms. They didn't teach any of this to me when I was in school, and chances are in America, they won't be teaching it anytime soon. Great, what a time to be alive. Very cool and normal country we have here. So I'll give you a crash course on this incredibly multifaceted and nuanced topic in 3 minutes or less. Non-binary, also sometimes referred to as gender neutral, NB, or gender non-conforming, is an umbrella term for many different gender identities that are outside the gender binary. Basically, anyone who does not exclusively identify as male or female. It could be a mix of genders, it could be no gender at all. Some non-binary people also identify as transgender, and both fall under the umbrella of LGBTQ+. It's not tied to sexuality and is different from being intersex. How does someone know if they are non-binary? They just know, alright? Who am I, an idiot, to tell someone they may or may not be going through emotions that I myself have never experienced? Do you follow me? They commonly use singular they/them pronouns in English, however some of them may prefer other pronouns. I thought that they was used for only for groups of people. All words are made up, language evolves as humans do. There are even subcategories within non-binary: agender, bigender, demigender, pangender, polygender, omnigender, gender fluid, xenogender. All these different terms, which ones do I use? How do I know what pronoun to use? I don't want to offend anyone, but it's all so confusing. Hey, relax. You're getting more riled up by pronouns than a parent at a Florida school board meeting. From the outside looking in, I'm not gonna lie, gender can be weird and confusing sometimes. If you want to know what to call someone, luckily, I'll hook you up with this little cheat sheet I have. Are you ready? They'll tell you. Or you can just ask. I call people what they want to be called. That's it. If they change it later, then they'll tell you. Just treat everyone with respect. It's that simple. Life is too short not to be who you know you are. If you accidentally mess up someone's pronouns, just say, whoops, my bad, and move on. As long as you're making a conscious effort, I don't think anyone's gonna get upset with you. Part 2. Non-binary in the video games. Now that that's all out of the way, let's take a look at video game depictions that are outside of the gender binary, and not just humans, but any living being that does not identify as male or female, because games can get pretty creative with it. I came up with 3 flimsy categories because there's a lot of overlap between these: a live genderless being, gender is ambiguous, and gender fluidity. There's no clicker, this is just a mouse. A live genderless being, living beings who don't have a gender. Oftentimes this description is used for mystical beings whose sheer presence exists outside of the gender binary. The first one that comes to mind is primordial chaos from Hades, who existed before the universe did. They start out as an otherworldly, isolated being, and as you talk to them more throughout the game, they actually start to feel more human emotions and even reconnect with their daughter Nyx. Taking the most literal definition of the term, you could easily make the argument that legendary Pokemon are non-binary. They're all genderless, the only exception I think being Latios and Latias, who if I remember correctly tried to hook up with Ash in one of the movies? Wait, what the? This is probably done so that you can't breed them in-game to keep their status as rare Pokemon. Just like non-binary people, some may have more masculine features or more feminine features, but they're all non-gendered living beings. Brahmamon from Fire Emblem 7 on the Game Boy Advance surrendered their identity to obtain massive amounts of dark powers. When you talk to them in the game, they're a mirror of the person talking to them. At the end of the game, they're the real MVP since they revived your dead dragon girlfriend to fight other dragons in the race war. What a bro! Oh, whoops, this video might have some spoilers. Oftentimes, robots and AIs won't be male or female because they're robots. Like Flack the Beastmaster from Borderlands 3, who I'm pretty sure was everyone's favorite character from that game. Flack even carries a non-binary pin on them. Nice little touch. Queen of Quen from Final Fantasy IX belongs to the genderless species the Q, and the game uses both she and he interchangeably. Quina is the head chef in Alexandria Castle, and just like modern wholesome games, is obsessed with the frogs for some reason. The next one will be contentious, Kirby. In Japan, in English, Kirby is usually referred to as male and has more masculine cover art, but in Japanese, Kirby isn't referred to with any gendered pronouns, and in promo material, has been seen participating in both boys only and girls only events. I don't think Kirby has had any deep thoughts about Kirby's gender identity, and I could probably truncate that sentence. Kirby is just Kirby, going around kissing the homies to heal them. Until now, what the heck? Gender ambiguity. Which gender they are is ambiguous, and the game often uses they them pronouns, or any pronouns, or interchangeable masculine and feminine pronouns for them, such as Go-Go in Final Fantasy VI. They're a mime and an optional party member you meet towards the end of the game by being sucked down a giant dune butthole on purpose. Leaving gender ambiguous is often used for player avatar characters since the game doesn't know what the gender of the player will be. Frisk, the player character from Undertale, is specifically designed to appear more gender neutral. In the sequel-ish game Deltarune, the main character Chris is specifically referred to with they-them pronouns by the other characters. The knight from Hollow Knight is genderless and could also fit into the previous category. They're referred to in-game as they-them. Similar situation with the bard from Wandersong and the player character from Say No More, who's really good at setting boundaries. In some recent games with character creators, they won't refer to your body options explicitly as male or female. They'll have a more masculine body type and a more feminine body type, like in Monster Hunter Rise. The game just refers to you as your name. Wish the armor was also swappable between body types, but we'll get there. Someday. A similar situation with Inklings and Octolings in Splatoon 3. The game has you pick your style, and you can choose any hair options and clothing options that were gender locked in the previous games. Same situation with Animal Crossing New Horizons. Some games even let you pick they-them pronouns, like the RPG Wildermyth, and in Forza Horizon 5 where your driver's body type isn't tied to gender at all, which is pretty cool. In Cyberpunk 2077, you create your character V, and the game allows you to create a non-binary character, which is pretty cool. It's a shame they didn't finish making the rest of the game. Gender fluidity. This is probably what comes to mind when most people hear the term non-binary. Some are depicted as androgynous, but don't necessarily need to be. You can be androgynous and gendered. Like Flea from Chrono Trigger, it's another Venn diagram. Characters may lean more feminine or masculine, but if they NB, then they NB. Quick sidebar here though, if you ain't played Chrono Trigger, go take a shower. You're filthy, you disgust me. And then go play Chrono Trigger, it's a masterpiece. More NB examples, examples if you will. From Bug Snacks, we got the Grumpus Floofty Fizzlebean, a questionably ethical gastroentomologist from Snacksburg, who's a part of Elizabeth Megafig's expedition. None of those words are in the Bible. Bolt, an unlockable spear wielder from Crypto the Necrodancer. Testament from Guilty Gear is the envy of every NB. Older games that used he/him for Testament, but with the most recent game Guilty Gear Strive, the creators deliberately confirmed that they are agender. Not a gender, agender. Remember my PowerPoint from earlier? That's a common trend. Sometimes older games would dance around the topic of the character's gender, or may have been changed in localization in different regions, but if a character returns later, or if the game gets remade, or when the developers are asked in an interview, then they just straight up say it. Limstella, also from Fire Emblem 7, is a manufactured being, made by their creator Nurgle to be perfect, and it's a pretty difficult boss fight. Kaiser from Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn, an officer in Lagu's army, confirmed to be non-binary when they returned in the mobile game. Bloodhound, the mysterious humble hunter from Apex Legends. Sawyer and Rowan from Boyfriend Dungeon, and the game specifically lets you play as a non-binary person with they/them pronouns. Sawyer struggles to make mac and cheese, and I think Rowan might be a murderer? MS Sundance Rosier, the main character from Battlefield 2024, who's the Parisian-born orphan wingsuit operator. That's pretty cool. Too bad they didn't make the rest of the game. A case where a character was maybe thought to be NB but later confirmed not to be is Shiver from Splatoon 3. Initially, the promo material for Splatoon 3 in every language had not specified Shiver's gender, but did for Big Man and Fry's forehead. But later Nintendo of America just straight up said Shiver identifies as female. It may be disappointing to some, especially in a game like Splatoon that is played by many LGBT people, but what we're absolutely going to do is respect her pronouns. Even if Splatoon 3's colors are the non-binary flag, and Shiver is literally wearing a binder. However, there is Ghostbow Juniper from Xenoblade 3, who is explicitly non-binary, and before anyone says it was just a localization thing, it's literally in the game's code. New gender just dropped. 2. They refer to them as they multiple times in the game. They're an archer who's the leader of Colony Tau, and teaches you the fabled NB technique of rail grinding. They also help out Mr. Potato Man and his people not starve to death. Apparently, potatoes are hard to grow. Maybe we should have been nicer to Irish people. This is representation done well. Juniper is non-binary, but also does a lot of stuff irrelevant of their gender identity. Extremely rare W for Xenoblade, and I mean extremely rare. Part 3. How can games represent? Notice how when I talked about all these characters, I was able to say characteristics about them that weren't tied to their gender identity? All these characters don't just show up and go, hey, I'm non-binary, my soul-defining characteristics that I'm non-binary, better watch out, I'm gonna sit on a chair weird and spray you with a gender fluid, I don't know. They're their own characters with their own personalities, backstories, skill sets, desires, who happen to be non-binary. I personally think the best way to do representation is to make fully fleshed out characters that just happen to be something. Basically, depict people as people. I don't really have much of a thesis to this video, I just think they're kinda neat. I think it's great that creatives are more comfortable with using different types of people, and people of all different swaths have stories with characters who represent different identities. Of course, I have some action items to consider. When making a video game with people in it, there are many varieties of people to choose from. Different races, sexualities, body types, personalities, and of course, gender identities to choose from. I do not think there should be preordained quotas or a Noah's Ark 2 of every minority checklist or whatever it is that Overwatch did, but I do encourage creatives to consider using more from the multidimensional palette that is people. Even if you're not making something starring humans, the characters have to be relatable to people. You don't need to make a big deal about someone's gender identity, unless of course that's what your game is specifically about. If you want to include a non-binary character in your cast, you can just have the other characters refer to them with they them pronouns and treat it like it's normal, because it is. If you're going to have a character creator, you can have a more masculine body type and a more feminine body type rather than explicitly calling it male or female. It's a minor change, but it actually does make a difference. And if you really want to be a cool guy, you can have players pick their pronouns regardless of what body type they select, or just refer to everyone as they. It's gender neutral, not just for people who are gender neutral. Make clothing and hair options in-game gender neutral. I'm not going to pretend like I know how easy or difficult it is to rig a costume to different body types, but I do think it should be achievable as long as it's accounted for in the project's scope, schedule, and budget. Because it's extremely easy to become radicalized on YouTube unless you're actively fighting against it, recently I'll be scrolling through my homepage or watching a seemingly normal video and then 10 minutes in they're like, wokeness is ruining video games. People are defending these bad, buggy, unfinished games because the main character is trans or whatever. No one is doing this. This is not a thing that is happening. The gender identity of a character has no bearing on if the gameplay is good. This is a silly man argument being made by a silly man. If anyone says something like how gaming is getting too political, this should activate the sign in your brain that says, okay, even if they've previously said something I agree with, this person is full of shit and I can disregard everything they're about to say. But in an attempt to find some common ground with those people, isn't it better for players to have more options? Ain't video games about having new experiences you may not normally have in the real world? So you know what I say? Enough with these gendered costumes. Let women wear full armor, god damn it. Let men be hoes! I guess I did have to point to this video. Anyways, thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe. Let me know how y'all feel about all this below, but keep in mind, today's comment code word is purple. Comment purple if you made it all the way through the video, and include the word purple in your comment if you write something more substantial, and that's it, video's over.